Joe Profit. With us on the line is Ben Knotts. He's the Legislative Executive Director for Americans for Prosperity Virginia chapter, and he's with us now. Reverend Ben Knotts. Ben, great to have you with us. You're with John Fredericks and candidate for Georgia 6th running for Congress, Joe Profit, who's also in the preaching business. So you guys have a little in common there. Ben.
Oh, you can't beat that. Good to hear y'all today.
So, Ben, what is going on with these governors now? So here's what they do. They shut their states down. They lock everybody down. Then they're shocked that they have no money because, of course, there's no sales tax and there's no taxes to pay and nobody's doing anything because they locked the state down. And now they're crying and begging and saying, well, the federal government, which is us, has to bail them out. And a lot of these states have mismanaged their funds, like Illinois, for 30 years. What's the deal?
You know, it's really just sad that our firefighters, our doctors, our public workers become pawns in a game for these lawmakers that want to pivot relief from the people they put out of work to themselves because they've had a spending problem. And I want to be really explicit and clear here. We were just part of the best economy we have ever had, and they didn't do anything to resolve the spending problems they had. And so this is not going to solve their problem. So we need to keep the relief focused on the people the government put out of work in an effort to flatten the curve. So I'm sick about this, and I hope everybody will go to rejectbailouts.com and sign up so that they can start sending messages to the lawmakers to say we're not doing this. This is obscene, and we're not doing it.
You want to go to rejectbailout.com. Ben, what is the justification for these governors to ask the taxpayer to bail out decades of mismanagement, blaming it on COVID-19?
And so, effectively, their tax revenues are down because, like you said, they've been put into this position with the pandemic. And their justification is they can't spend on the budget that they anticipated they were going to have this year because the economy slowed down. Now, just think of the precedent we create. Anytime something happens, there is no reason states need rainy day funds because they can just get the federal government to bail them out, even if it's attributed to their misuse. John, only 10 states in the entire U.S. had enough money to pay their debts before the pandemic. It's a debt of $1.5 trillion. And overall, the whole nation, there's 5 trillion pension debts that states have accumulated. You know, we've already given $1.8 trillion this year and $1 trillion in the last month alone. So, I mean, where does it end?
You know, it's amazing to me. And Larry Hogan of Maryland and the governor of Illinois, these are the two worst culprits. But Hogan's amazing. I mean, Hogan ran around, locked everything down, can't go outside, can't spend any money, can't drive, can't do this. Now he's got drones flying over cities to be sure that people stay in. So he completely locked the state down, tanked his revenue, and then he's going on CNN whining and complaining that Trump's not bailed him out, and the money that he's asking for is like 5x what money they cost themselves by their own lockdown. I mean, it's complete insanity.
It just really makes me mad, though, because, I mean, my wife's in insurance. She talks to people daily saying they're laying people off. They're sending people home. They furloughed people. I mean, it's a never-ending list of people that are suffering economically. You have to restore the people who are the drivers of the economy before you try and keep spending like the economy's okay. It's not. These people have to go back to work. That's how you get your tax revenue back. That's how you get your budget back. You fix that first. You don't do that. That's why everybody go to rejectbailouts.com and help us drive this message so that we don't enable this sort of behavior with regards to getting the federal government to pay off these bad practices.
Okay, Ben, hang with us here. I'm going to loop in one of our guests here that is live, which is Joe Profit. Joe's running for Congress in the 6th District in the Republican primary. That is in a couple of weeks, isn't it, Joe?
Yes, absolutely. June 9.
June 9th.
Yes, sir.
So you got a couple of weeks. And, Joe, you played football, right, with the Falcons. Tell us a little about that.
Well, actually, I was the number one draft choice for the Atlanta Falcons. I was the number 7 overall pick in the National Football League draft.
When was that?
That was 1971.
1971. See, I was in high school in '71, and not in Atlanta, so I don't really remember that. And what were you? What position? Running back, right?
Running back. Yeah, it was called the year of the quarterback. The first 5 drafts were quarterbacks: Archie Manning, Pastorini, those guys from California large schools, and I came from the great state of Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana, University of Louisiana at Monroe. Yes.
I was an Oilers fan, and I was very excited when we picked Pastorini. And I thought he was. I know there's Warren Moon and Steve McNair back in the day, but I always thought Pastorini was the best quarterback the Oilers ever had, and there was games there against Pittsburgh where he got absolutely robbed. But I was a believer. But Joe, what do you think about these states, like Ben is saying? What do you think about these state governors begging for tax money to get themselves bailed out when they've mismanaged their economy for 30 years, or mismanaged their state? Then they shut everything down. They don't get any money, and then they blame Trump.
Well, first of all, at some point we're going to have to deal with the deficit. The budget's important. Folks that complaining now were complaining before, but now they're using the virus as an excuse. Mm-hmm. I will tell you this, that I am a conservative. I've always been that way. I think I was born a conservative. Mm-hmm. And at some point, we're going to have to deal with the deficit. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at $4 trillion right now. And at some point, our kids and grandkids are going to have to deal with that. Mm-hmm. So as a business person, I understand what it is to be faced with deficits. And at some point, they got to come down. And I've said to all of my Republican friends that we should keep in mind that one of our duties as a lawmaker is to make sure we have sufficient revenue to operate. And when you're at a deficit like that, it's going to be difficult.
Ben, let's get Ben Knotts back involved here with Americans for Prosperity. Ben, we just took on another, I lost count, $4 trillion added to the debt in this and now we're talking about another round, which includes maybe another $3 trillion of infrastructure, Green New Deal stuff that the Pelosi is going to put in, and that Trump's going to sign it because he really is in a box now. He wants the stimulus, he wants to create jobs. We're going into the election. The Democrats control the Congress. They're going to hold everything hostage. All kinds of crap is going to get in the next stimulus package. What do you make of this? What do you think we ought to do? What is Americans for Prosperity's position on bailout number, or I guess stimulus package number 5?
The key thing here is that we said from the beginning, it needed to be targeted and it needed to be temporary so that we can get through this and get people back to work. The president's message has consistently been about making the economy strong, and that's his strong suit. It's incredibly important that the message be around the workers that are suffering, because they're the ones that are put into this predicament. They're the ones who are asked to stay home, and that is for anybody that understands the conversations that regular people are having about not being able to go to work. Not being able to feed their families, not being able to get in line because the PPP funds aren't. People are really hurting. And so in many ways, he needs to make sure that people know that he feels that pain and that he's more concerned about the American workers' pain and not being able to work than he is about the governors who just went through this prosperous time and refused to cut any of their spending or get their economic house in order. And so I think that really is his strongest suit. And if he pivots into that and he keeps this focused on workers the way it should have been, I think he comes out of that on top. And I think Americans will appreciate that because they want it to be focused on getting the economy back to where it was.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you something, Ben. The concept here of the infrastructure plan, which the president is pushing for, that he says 2.1 trillion, it's going to end up being 3 trillion because of what the Democrats are going to put in that. I mean, do you see any benefit to that? Because our roads are crumbling, our bridges are crumbling. Trump has been talking about this for some time. Do you think maybe now's the time to just get it over with, get it done?
Just think of this number for a minute, okay? I think it was. I'm trying to find it. It's something to the effect of Americans have $49,000 per household this year. That's how much we've spent. And so, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done that is essential to our economy working. And again, this is what we should be talking about. So I get it that the president has these things that he thinks are relevant. I get it that he probably is going to be in a corner with regards to what the Congress wants. But, I mean, both parties have talked about a out-of-control deficit. When you're putting this much burden, not just on this generation, it's my kids, John. And it's something that they cannot pay. It's something we just keep spending as if it and it would be different if we didn't say that, if the economy was better, we could afford more of these things. We just got out of one of the longest periods of growth ever, and we didn't do anything but contribute to it. So at some point, we have to look at ourselves and say, we have to get this under control before we talk about doing anything else.
You want to text us 757-692-1710. By the way, you can go to us on Facebook Live if you want. We just started that today. Hope you'll like it. We'll be looking for feedback on that. Eric in Richmond, Virginia says, if they allow people to start suing over COVID-19 and with caps on damages, the number of businesses that will go out of business will skyrocket. Not only that, Eric, they will not start. I've talked to multiple business owners here in Atlanta who have told me until I can be sure that I can't get sued, I'm going to stay shut down because I don't have the resources to defend myself. So that's just one thing. Hey, Ben, we've got Joe Prophet here with us. I want to tell you guys a comment. I've been very critical, as you know. There's no bigger Trump supporter than I am. I think the last 2 weeks, the press conferences, the communication coming out of the White House has been an absolute clown show. Worst I've ever seen. I think it's hurting him in the polls. We still got leaks in there. But you're both preachers. So I was really down the other day. First time ever just looking at the poll numbers and talking to people. And I really think the communication from the White House has been abysmal the past eight days. So I was talking about it to my wife, Ben and Joe. And she said, look, we were at the campaign from the day it started. We were there the whole time. We know what happened. She said, in my judgment, Trump won because God put him in there, and only God can take him out. And that gave me some solace. Like, okay, I can buy it. Okay, that makes sense to me, Ben. Because you look at everything that's going on, you're like, how can we possibly win? I just wanted to get your reaction to that, Ben, and then Joe's.
Well, the Bible says that God appoints the powers that be. So it is, in my personal faith, I believe that He is responsible for everything. He holds us responsible for our individual choices, but at the end of the day, you have to believe He's in control, that He's not shocked by anything in history, and that He has a plan according to see it through.
Joe?
Well, according to the Word, King David served his purpose during his generation. I believe that our president is going to continue to serve his purpose during this generation. President Trump has brought leadership to this country that we've needed for decades. And those people that are continually trying to downplay his significance, they got another thing coming. So I'm a country boy, and I always say that the thing that separates the winners from the losers is confidence. And our president certainly has that. And he's demonstrated to the world that America is no longer going to be second fiddle to anything that goes on in the world. Well, so I'm happy that we got a President Trump.
Joe, let's just hope he stays there and hope my wife is right. Christine in D.C., Washington, D.C., just texted in. She says, federal employees in Washington, D.C., as of today, are working from home now until May 29th. Hey, but they're getting that paycheck, baby. That paycheck, it comes direct deposit every 2 weeks. Hey, just stay at home, get paid, stay in your pajamas, go online, do a Zoom, have a cup of coffee. Life is great in the swamp. John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Joe Prophet running for Congress in the Republican primary in the 6th District. That's the seat now held, a Republican seat. Tom Price, who will be with us Monday, by the way, by phone when I'm in Mississippi. He held that forever. He was my congressman. That's where I lived before that. Newt Gingrich held the seat when he was speaker. So 6th District is a long, storied history. As you know, I lived in Roswell for a quarter century, and so I'm familiar with the area. And when Tom got named Secretary of HHS, then there became an open seat, and Karen Handel won the seat in a special election over John Ossoff by a very slim margin. The Democrats poured millions of dollars in that. The kid had no experience. He didn't even live in the district and almost beat her. Then Karen turned around and got beat by Lucy McBath in the general during the blue wave in 18. So now the seat should go back to Republican hands, but McBath turning out to be a pretty tough candidate, and she's raised millions of dollars, and I don't think Karen can beat her. Now, Karen has run she was a Fulton County supervisor. She was head of the North Fulton Chamber of Commerce. Memory serves me. She was Secretary of State. Then she ran for governor, got beat in the runoff by Deal. Then she ran for U.S. Senate, didn't finish in the top tier there. Then she ran for Congress. Now she's running for Congress again. She gets beat for Congress. She'll run for something else. She's a professional candidate. How do you make a living as a professional candidate, Joe?
Well, first of all, you have to understand the mentality of a career politician. She has spent her entire life running from one opportunity to the other one in the government. I'm a businessman. Mm-hmm. You know, my daddy was a sharecropper, served in the Second World War, came back to the States and couldn't find a job. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, he used to always talk about how he saw these signs that said, colored need not apply. Mm-hmm. So my daddy became a sharecropper, and a proud one. Mm-hmm. And I remember him telling us, boys, we got to work our way off this farm. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's entitled to this seat. Mm-hmm. Whoever gets this seat got to do the hard work. Mm-hmm. And we got to work our way out of this situation. I want that seat back. Mm-hmm. As you said, we've had it for decades. It's red. Mm-hmm. And I see red and I want it back. And I have the wherewithal to do that. I know how to win. You know, I think about all the folks that had the seat, the conservatives. Then I think about who was the last to draw and the first to fall. That was Karen. And now we have what I believe is the number one pick. That's in Joe Prophet. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to bring the same thing to the 6th District that I brought to the Falcons. Mm-hmm. I know how to win. Mm-hmm. And I know how to keep the seat when we get it. Mm-hmm. And as I talk to folks throughout the 6th District about who I am and what I do, all they got to do is look back. I've been a Republican all my life. Mm. I didn't become a conservative last week. I was born that way. So what I'm trying to do is bring to the district something that we haven't had, real leadership. I've made payroll for decades, and I've signed on both sides of the check.
The front and the back.
Front and the back. And I know how it is. Back
when you were with the Falcons, and the front when you started your own media company.
Multimedia Concepts. We took a small company, a couple $100,000, and grew it into a very large corporation.
What does it do?
Those days we did multimedia work. We started out as an interconnect company, mm-hmm. a small business in the basement of one of my restaurants downtown. Mm-hmm. And we grew that business to over 800 employees. We operated in 37 states and 9 countries. We helped a lot of families to enjoy the American dream. I'm going to do the same thing when I get to Washington. Mm-hmm. As I said, you know, we have a deficit problem. Right. And when I was starting my businesses, when I got into the situation where I could, as I thought about my mama would say, baby, we're going to make ends meet. And those folks out there that are listening to me in the 6th District, you understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that are needed, but you cannot lead where you won't go, and you can't teach what you don't know. I know business. I know politics. I worked for Reagan Bush here in Georgia when, look, we had a similar situation. We needed some bow weavers, and we needed some black conservatives.
Right.
And I'm the guy that went out and got Jose Williams and Dr. Ralph David Abernathy to join the Republican crusade for Reagan, and we won. And as a matter of fact, right now our sitting president, Trump, he won about 17% of the black vote. We need to do that again. I'm the guy that can make it happen.
No, he only got 8%.
Well, overall, I know in the state of
Are you saying in
Pennsylvania,
in Georgia or Pennsylvania? Because nationally he got 8%.
8%, but I think in Pennsylvania he got something like 17%.
So Joe, let me go back to some of the things that you said. We're with Joe Profit. He's running for the Republican nomination for Congress in the 6th District in Georgia. That's a very storied seat. Newt Gingrich held it. It was a district that I was in. Then Tom Price held it. And so it's got a long history. Now it's in Democratic hands. A very liberal Lucy McBath has it, who upset Karen Handel, who's running again, and Joe trying to get in the runoff. But Joe, you said you grew up as a sharecropper's son. Yes. A lot of our listeners don't even know what that is. And just so people know what it is, what a sharecropper is you don't own the land. Somebody else owns the land, and you lease the land basically to grow things on it, and then you can sell what you grow, but you don't own it. So you don't own the farm. You're basically leasing it, and the only way to get out of that thing and buy your own is to work your tail off, because a lot of the profits have to go back to the landowner, right? So they get paid no matter what happens. So, I mean, that's a tough life, no question.
It's a tough life, but, life is tough anyway.
Right.
And when you are in a situation, you have to play the hand that's dealt you.
Right.
And I tell folks all the time, I listen right now and I talk to the folks in the 6th District. If you are an employee or you own a business, you want profit. Joe Profit, I can make things happen. I know how to win. I've done it in the NFL. I've done it in business. I've done it here in Georgia, working for Reagan Bush. And I'll do it in Washington. I know how to bring folks together. I know how to make people work as a team. And I've convinced some pretty powerful Democrats to come onto our side.
Well, that's what you're definitely going to need, especially in your runoff going up against Karen Handel. I mean, I just don't think Karen can win. Coupled with the fact that Karen is not going to back Trump. She's a never Trumper. She ran away from him when she almost got beat by that young fella, Ossoff. So I just don't know what the point is of nominating a person who is a perennial candidate, can't win, is a never Trumper. I mean, what's the purpose? What's the point? I don't get it.
Well, let me tell you one thing, John. I will say this.
She's a never Trumper.
Yeah, and Macbeth has a seat. She was the poster child against the Second Amendment.
Right.
And she won in our district. This is unheard of.
Running against the Second Amendment.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And all I'm going to say this is that I do know this, and this is a fact. Y'all can take this one to the bank. The prophet can handle Macbeth. And once I handle her, I'm going to hold that seat.
Ben Knott still with us, the Reverend Ben Knott. He's the legislative director for Americans for Prosperity in Virginia. Ben, let me ask you something. Governor Ralph Northam's going to have a press conference today, and they've been very close to the vest. As you know, he shut businesses down for another 2 weeks. He said it was going to end May 8th. None of the numbers that he has would suggest that May 8th wouldn't be an open date, but nobody knows what he is going to do. Amanda Chase thinks he's just going to go another 2 weeks in perpetuity to keep businesses shut down. What do you think Governor Northam is going to do today in his press conference at 2 o'clock?
I wish I could tell the future, because I have not been able to see I've not been able to figure out what's going to happen next. I've been pleasantly surprised a few times on some of the decisions he's made, from certificate of public need to telehealth. But I didn't see a lot of this coming, and I don't know what to expect, Sean.
Well, I expect him to have some reason where he's going to postpone businesses opening in phase one for another week or two. That's been his style, but there's no evidence now. I mean, Virginia has 5,000 open COVID-19 beds. They're only utilizing 23% of their available ventilators. There's no numbers that would say you keep businesses shut down. So I don't know how he's going to spin it if he does that. Hopefully he'll come out today and give the all clear for May 8th, but who knows?
And I think people are ready to get back out. I mean, it does take less time to do it right than it does to do it over. So, you never want to rush anything, but I mean, at the end of the day, people have to get back to work. You don't need to be telling people their job isn't essential because it's essential to them. And so it is important that we start opening the economy back up as much as necessary and as much as possible, as little as necessary. We want to make sure it's done right, but people have to get back to work.
Joe, let me get to you, Joe, and ask you something. The demand curve, the demand side here, nobody really looked at this. I've been in Atlanta for a week. I've been here for 5 days. I expect it to come down, see people out and about, having fun, going back, getting back with their lives. I saw the exact opposite. I saw the overwhelming majority of restaurants closed, the overwhelming majority of businesses closed, business owners telling me they can't get employees, they're staying on unemployment, they're afraid to get sued, and then there's nobody out. So the demand is down because people are afraid. They all got masks on. So even though we pump money in the economy on the supply side, we open businesses up, I don't see the demand in Georgia. That's the one shocker for me, the lack of businesses open here. Even though the governor said, let's open the state and get back to work. Why Joe Profit?
Well, why Joe Profit? Well, first of all, there is a tremendous amount of fear in this country. And a lot of us are confused. See, there's a difference between fear and danger. There's real danger, but fear is imaginary. And we got to ease that. I believe all the folks out there that are listening to me that say they love the Lord, remember what he said, fear not. And if we can overcome our fear, we're going to get back to business. And being a businessman and with the name Profit, I want to get out there.
Do you think the fear is irrational?
I don't think fear is ever rational. Mm-hmm. As I said, fear is confused with danger. Mm-hmm. The only thing that, and I'm going to make a quote here, but we don't have to fear anything. Mm-hmm. We were commanded not to fear.
Right.
So if we get beyond that, then we'll get back to business. Mm-hmm. I would like to be able to talk a little bit about what I'm doing and to the folks out there in the 6th District.
We got 2 minutes. Go ahead. It's all yours.
Okay. I would like to say to the folks in the 6th District that we've had an opportunity before. We've sat for a long time in this seat and we've held it, and we've done some good things. We're in a situation now where we need to regain it. I can do that. I know how to win. And I've done that in NFL, I've done that in business, and I'll do it again in Washington. I bring folks together. And I would like to say this in the end, that if you go to joeprofitforcongress.com, we can start the winning again. I know how to win, and it does not have to be this way. Mm-hmm. If you go out and give me a shot when you're doing your absentee voting, vote for Profit. Mm-hmm. As I always tell them, that if you are an employee or you own a business, you want profit. Mm-hmm. So please go to joeprofitforcongress.com and judge me based on my accomplishments. Like I say, I know how to win, I know how to bring folks together, and I'll get the 6th District back to being proud again.
Joe Profit for Congress. Go to joeprofitforcongress.com. You are on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're live in Atlanta today, going to Mississippi next week. I want to thank Ben Knotts. Ben, thanks for being with us, man. Great to have you on. Always enjoy getting Ben Knotts' perspective. Joe Profit was with us. Renee Unterman will be joining us momentarily. She's running for Congress in the 7th District of Virginia. We have enthusiastically endorsed Renee Unterman in Georgia. Long time friend of the John Fredericks Radio Network and a fighter like Joe is. So, Joe, thank you for being with us. Good luck in your race. You got to get in the runoff, Joe.
Absolutely.
Just got to get in the runoff. You get in the runoff, you're in Congress.
Thank you.
John Fredericks Radio Network. Stay with us.